My roommate was cooking meth.
I watched that 4-part story, so you don't have to. That's Christy. And she was telling us how she moved to LA 6 years ago. And the first 6 to 8 months was like super blissful. She loved it. It was great, right? And a lot of her friends from college had moved to LA before her and told her that most people find roommates by going ahead and going on Facebook Marketplace and doing that. So she's like, okay, cool. She does it. She interviews with these 2 girls. She moves in with them. So one of the girls has her own room, and then she's sharing a room with one of the other girls, right? And they're both actors. They're Christian. They have a lot of things in common. I guess because Chrissy's 22, she's going in and out of the house all the time. The girl who's actually on the lease was just like, I don't want 2 people living in that other room anymore. I just want 1 person. So she tells them like, hey, one of you either take over the room or both of you guys have to leave. So neither of them can pay the $1K that it costs for that room. So she's like, okay, bet I have to leave. So she gives them 1 month to figure it out. So she's stressing. At the time, Chrissy was working as an intern and not making any money at a production finance company. She was also working at an SIE place. So she was trying to figure out what she can do. Someone reaches out to her and they're like, hey, I have a room in West Hollywood. Do you want it? I'll also give you $200 on top of it if you take it. Chrissy's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, this is clearly from God. I'm gonna go ahead and take this opportunity. She meets with her at the Grove for coffee. She really likes the girl. She moves into the new place and she gets introduced to her new roommate. And the new roommate, she named her Dakota. She said she was like a typical LA girl. She walks up to the girl. She has like a kind of like a Paris Hilton mixed with like a Kim Kardashian voice. The girl that she's moving in with is super sweet. Everything in the house is like gold and fluffy. So fast forward, everything's great the first few weeks. So at this point, Christy has acclimated. She like has a boyfriend now. She's doing the jobs. She's doing her thing, right? And one day Dakota walks up to her and she goes, hey girl, you're really cute. Like, you should come with me to my second job. Christy's like, oh, I didn't know you have a second job. I thought you only worked at Pink Taco. And the girl's like, no, just come with me. She's like, I'm gonna dress you up really cute though. So the girl gives her a Fashion Nova neon green dress, and this random guy comes and picks them up and takes them to a mansion in the hills. And so she's asking her like, what are we about to do? Like, how do we make money, right? And Dakota looks at her and she goes, okay, so we're gonna walk in there and there's gonna be men playing poker, and all you have to do is like massage them, and you don't have to do anything else if you don't want to, but they're just gonna tip you. And Chrissy's looking at her like, what? Are you even speaking English right now? They walk into the mansion, and sure enough, that's exactly what's happening. There's beautiful, voluptuous women all walking around model-esque, massaging these men that have money, playing poker and sitting on their laps, all this stuff, right? And Chrissy's like, wow, I really had the privilege of, you know, growing up in a really sheltered home. Like, I have not experienced any of this. Like, she is shell-shocked, right? So she's standing in the corner. She's like, I am a young 22-year-old fresh out of college. What am I doing in this room? She's like, how do I get out of here? But she really can't. She has no service. She's up in the hills. She gets out of there unscathed, and she's just like, I'm not gonna tell anybody about this night, but like, this girl clearly has a lifestyle that I'm not really like used to. Chrissy meets some of Dakota's other friends, and she like meets this woman that's like from a different country, and she got married. She got a green card, and when she met another man that was a millionaire, she was like, yeah, my husband's cool, but that guy has money, so I like went with the other guy and I left my husband. And Chrissy's like, whoa. So fast forward, one of Chrissy's friends comes to visit her. She said, do you think I'm naive? My friend's even more naive. And so they're in the house one day, they're chilling, she's staying with Chrissy. They're sleeping in Chrissy's room, and all of a sudden they're awakened to the sound of like screaming and glass shattering. And so they run out into the living room, and they see in Dakota's room this like random promoter guy that like is sometimes at their house is like fighting with Dakota, like straight up fist fighting. So she runs over there, she gets in between them, she separates them, and she's yelling at the guy like, yo, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? He's like 6'4", he's pretty skinny, but still, like, you're a man, like, why are you beating on a woman? And Christy's looking at the man. He has like a black eye. Dakota has a busted lip. She's just like, what is going on? And he's like, look, you don't know what's going on. She hit me while I was asleep. And she looks at Dakota, and Dakota's looking at her like, he's lying, I didn't do that. Chrissy's like, Dakota, can I call the cops? Can I call the ambulance? Like, what do you need? And Dakota's like, no, he's a loser, like, it's fine, like, I'm honestly fine, da-da-da-da. So she's like, because she didn't want to call the cops, she's like, okay, please, can you just like block him and like make sure he never comes back? And so as the promoter guy is leaving, right, he looks at Chrissy and he goes, look under Dakota's bed, she's not who you think she is. And at this point, Chrissy's looking at him like, you just swung on a woman, like, I have nothing to say to you, you just need to leave, right? And so he leaves, so they go back to bed, right? They wake up the next morning, and they're so surprised to find the promoter guy back in their house, sitting there with his black eye. Chrissy's like, wow, this is a really toxic relationship. I don't know what to tell you about this. She tells her boyfriend about the whole situation. Her boyfriend's like, please leave. Like, I'm from LA. I know girls like her. Like, you need to stay away from her. Da-da-da-da. And she's like, look, I understand, but the rent situation is just so like feasible for me. I can afford it. I just can't imagine trying to go and find another place. I've been trying to find another place, but I I can't. He told her, like, please just don't hang out with her. And she's like, look, the last few encounters I've had with her have been absolutely wild, so I'm gonna make sure I stay away from her and just be cordial in the house. The rest of the trip with Ellie goes really smooth. Dakota and the promoter guy are still hanging out. After a little bit of time, rent actually got really high for Chrissy, and she's like, hey Dakota, can I get a roommate? Is that okay with you? And Dakota's like, yeah, I don't care, do your thing. So she ends up going on Facebook Marketplace and she finds this girl. She named her Lindsay. Lindsay moves in. She's super cool and they get along, right? At first, Dakota and Lindsay got along really well. It was no issues, right? But then sooner or later, it just started to like deteriorate. So Lindsay's like, I'm just gonna go find another place. So she does, and she tells Chrissy like, hey, can I just leave a few things in this closet? Chrissy's like, yeah. She's like, can I pay you for it? She's like, no, just leave it, like, you're good, right? And so she's like, I'll find another roommate, it's totally fine. Chrissy ends up going out of town, and she tells Dakota like, hey, I'm leaving, like, I'll be back, right? Little did she know that Dakota was gonna go in her room, take all of Lindsay's stuff out and throw it out into the streets. A few days later, Lindsay comes to pick up her stuff, and it's all in the streets, and it's wigs. She's a dom, and that's her job, and those are her wigs, and they're expensive, and she needed them. And so she calls Chrissy like, hey, like, why is my stuff in the streets? Like, Dakota threw it out, I don't understand. So when Chrissy reaches out to Dakota, she's like, hey, why did you do that? That's so evil, why would you do that? Dakota's like, you don't even know, she owes me money. And she gives her like 1,000 other reasons of why she did what she did. And Chrissy's just like, what? Like, that girl is sweet. Like, why would you do that to her? She just felt like Dakota had a vendetta against Lindsay, and she did not honestly understand why. Even after all of this happened, Chrissy still didn't feel like she needed to leave. She said she was so enveloped in a scarcity mindset, she couldn't even imagine trying to find another place. So now it's been about 8 months since Chrissy's been living with Dakota, and she said after the whole Lindsay situation, things kind of calmed down and nothing really happened. And Dakota actually ended up walking up to her and being like, hey girl, I'm so sorry for all the chaotic stuff that's been happening. Like, I just apologize. And Chrissy had also noticed that Dakota was like hanging out with the promoters less, and she was actually working more. So she was like, okay, maybe she's turning a new leaf. So then Dakota's like, hey, you know that our lease is going to be up here. I think we should get a new place with like 3 or 4 bedrooms and get more roommates so that you can afford to have your own room and your own space. Like, I think that's a great idea. So, you know, at this point, Chrissy's like, wow, you're like being considerate and you're being kind. Like, I'm super down. Let's do it. So at this point, they end up finding another apartment. They find 2 other roommates that are super sweet. They really like them. She named them Alexa and Sam. And so they move in together. They get a 4-bedroom. Everybody has their own room, and everyone's on the lease this time too. Alexa was a girl from Sweden, and Sam was a recent divorcee. At this point, Chrissy does say that she admits that she was gaslighting herself and just trying to like make it seem like everything was okay in Dakota's lifestyle. So once they all move in together, Dakota actually has her sister come and visit her. Her name was Nevada, and they're kind of similar. And so she said that they're all hanging out one day, and Nevada asked Dakota like, hey, did you tell the girls about your boob job? And Dakota laughs, and she's like, no, I haven't told them. So Dakota's like, yeah, this guy wanted to sleep with me. I told him I don't want to sleep with him unless I get a boob job. And so he got her a boob job, and then she didn't sleep with him, so he put out a hit on her. And Chrissy's jaw hits the ground, and she's like, when did this happen? And Dakota's like, oh, like a year ago. And Chrissy's looking at her like, this happened while I was living with you? A man put a hit out on you while I was living with you? Like, what's going on with the hit? Like, what's happening? And Dakota's like, oh no, it's fine, he got deported. And Chrissy's looking at her like, what is actually happening? Like, on the other hand, Nevada's sitting there bragging about how she scams men on these like sugar daddy websites and how she like takes advantage of them and all this. Chrissy's also started to peep like, you guys are both criminals, like this is like runs in the family kind of thing. While Nevada was there, she ends up getting like a teacup little Pomeranian. After a week, they ask her like, hey, where's the cute little dog? And Nevada's like, oh yeah, I took him back home and like my mom stepped on him and he's gone. And Chrissy's just like, what the hell? Like, what kind of people are you? Nevada and Dakota also tell the girls that Dakota's been stealing her mom's pills since she was a child. Like, this has been a thing. So at this point, Chrissy was promoted, so she's barely home. However, the roommates, Alexa and Sam, are always home. And so they decided to create a group chat so that they can discuss things separately, right? So the messages started to become a little erratic. She started getting text messages that Dakota was vacuuming at midnight topless. And they're like, what is going on? Why is she doing this? Like, she's like really going in. The different types of men that were coming into the house was only increasing. They would just be going in and out of the house. They'd be in the common areas. Like, it was just getting ridiculous. Sure enough, Chrissy comes home at midnight one night, and Dakota's standing there just vacuuming topless, and she's just like, what's going on? Like, Dakota's just standing there defending herself. Neighbors started to complain that Dakota stole their vacuum cleaner. So Dakota started barging into Sam's room and like starting fights with her for no reason. They were getting a lot of noise complaints on top of that. And then all of a sudden, this guy named Trent, he started showing up at the apartment all the time, and it went from him being there all the time to him never leaving. And at this point, Chrissy's not clocking it, but all the spoons are going missing, and she's not understanding like what that means. So now the girls are talking in the group chat, and they're saying like Dakota is attacking them, saying, why do you have stuff in the cabinets? The kitchen cabinets are not for you to to be putting stuff inside of. Dakota starts stealing her roommate's vacuum cleaner. And then the roomies are like, I don't know if she's trying to threaten us, but she's saying that her dad owns the apartment, but he co-signed the apartment. Maybe she doesn't understand how leases work, but like she was trying to like act like this was her apartment. And then Sam is like, do you know that she's smoking Seth in her room with those men that she has over? And Christy's like, what do you mean? At first it was just mainly Dakota and Sam going at it. And then all of a sudden Alexa and Dakota started going at it, which was wild because at first they were actually getting along really well. The roomies hated walking out of the shower and finding random men just like walking around in the common areas on the couches, just like big men. So one day they text Dakota and they're like, hey, we asked so-and-so to leave. Like, you left him here by himself and you didn't even tell us he was here. I don't want to be in a house by myself with a stranger. Like, we need to talk about this. Dakota's like, don't do that again. Then Christy gets a text message from Sam saying, hey, they broke into my room. They ruffled through some stuff that I had in the living room. Like, I was at home. I don't understand what's going on. Christy's shocked. She's like, what do you mean they broke into your room? And she sends her a picture of a bobby pin in her door, like wedged in to break it open. So at this point, they're like, what are we gonna do? One day while the random men and Dakota aren't at the home and it's just Sam and Alexa, they go into Dakota's room. They go underneath her bed and sure enough, they find stuff there that is used to cook up Seth. And so they're just like, what the hell is going on, right? So they start taking pictures, they start compiling evidence. They're like, what are we gonna do? So now the fact that they found the stuff, they now know that their suspicion is true. Like, she really is not only cooking that stuff in there, but also lighting it up herself. Chrissy's like, look, I might be naive, but I knew better than to directly, like, you know, confront them about the situation. But Alexa and Sam didn't feel the same way. So they went straight up to them and was like, hey, da-da-da, we know that you're doing this. You need to leave. And Trent loses it. He's just like, da-da-da-da. And then he pulls up his shirt and tries to show his little pew-pew. And the girls are like, oh, no. All they can think about is calling the cops, right? So Chrissy's like, who is our co-signer? Like, who is Dakota's co-signer? When she looked it up, it was her dad. So she got the contact information off the lease and contacted Dakota's dad. And you guys can go to part 4 to see all of the screenshots. I'm just going to kind of go over the text messages just very briefly. But essentially, she tries to call the dad. The wife ends up picking up. And when she tells her, hey, Dakota's doing this, this, and that, the mom just starts wailing. She's like, oh my God, get her to a hospital, get her to a hospital. After all of that, Chrissy's like, does, you know, Dakota have a history of this? And of course, Chrissy already knows that she does. And the mom's like, yes, you know, after denying it for a little bit, she's like, yeah, you know, when she was younger, she used to steal pills out of the cabinet. So now Chrissy and the parents are trying to brainstorm how they can do like an intervention on Dakota. And so the mom is like, is she okay? Like, has she gone to class? And then Chrissy's like, class? Like, what are you talking about? The girl's not in school. Chrissy wants them to understand that this man that's in the room, Trent, has a pew-pew on him and that they're really scared that this needs to be attended to immediately. And the mom's like, oh, he'll be there Thursday. And Chrissy's like, we can't even wait another moment. Like, she needs to be out of this house now. And the mom's like, don't tell her that her dad's coming. She's going to be super upset that he's coming. Da-da-da-da. Chrissy's thinking like, wow, these people like really gentle parented this woman into a complete monster. The mom is just adamant on making this happen without anyone getting hurt. So now the dad is trying to negotiate when he can come out, and Chrissy's like, come get your child. And so eventually he shows up, and Chrissy's at work when he shows up, right? And she finds out that the dad walked up and he was like, Dakota, your roommate said that you're on schmugs. You need to come with me. You need to go to rehab. And Dakota's like, they're lying. They're lying, Dad. All I do is work every day and go to school. And the dad's like, wait, you're still going to school and you're still working every day? And she's like, yeah, I even have straight A's. And the dad's like, oh, okay, I believe you. And so at this point, Christy has been FaceTime. The roomies FaceTime her. And the dad's like, yeah, she's at work all day and she's at school. She's getting straight A's. I just don't believe that she's doing that. Like, I just don't believe it. Christy's looking at him like, why would I lie about your daughter? He obviously didn't want to believe that about his daughter. He just leaves. He doesn't do anything. Mind you, the Christy has given the father all of the evidence and all of the photos before he's arrived. After he leaves, the roomies still try to contact the dad and be like, hey, like, we really want you to, like, you know, get her to rehab. Like, she needs it, right? He basically goes off on them, tells them that they're snowflakes, that they're weak. He raised strong daughters that are smart and can handle themselves. They don't need a safe space. The roomies are the ones that don't know how to take care of themselves. And so when Chrissy saw how Dakota's dad spoke to Alexa, who's being so sweet to Dakota up until that point where they kind of started to fall apart, she went off on the dad. She's like, I have to read this because this was a read. Chrissy texts the dad and says, you are morally deficient and inept and an insufficient person. What you said to Alexa is disgusting. She told him, I'm sorry, we're trying to warn you that your daughter needs help. All the dad is talking about, like, oh, you're weak. I just wanted to see Trent. I wish someone FaceTimed him. I would have confronted him because that's what someone needs to do instead of addressing the fact that his daughter is the issue. He's like, where's Trent? At the end of it, he's like, I don't even believe Trent is real. Chrissy told him we weren't going to go to their room because Trent is in there with a pew-pew. What's so confusing about that? Chrissy told him, you raise a foolish daughter. We try to do the compassionate thing and call you so you can take her to rehab instead of calling the cops. And he agreed too. He was like, yeah, that was was a compassionate thing to do. Thank you. So at this point, Christy, the roomies, they've all had enough. They're like, we're gonna call the police, right? And in California, apparently it's always gonna be on the side of the tenants. So they realized, like, hey, if we call a police escort with all the evidence that we have, we can prove that we need to break our lease because we're in danger. So they call the cops. Apparently the cops showed up. They all go in front of Dakota's door. They hold up their pew-pews and they're announcing themselves. They're like, hey, Trent, Dakota, we know you're in there, like, come out. And they don't say anything. She's like, clearly this isn't their first rodeo. The cops looked at Christy and they said, hey, because Trent has been here for 30 days, he's technically a squatter. He has rights now. And because they're not opening the door, we can't just barge in there. But you guys have called us, grab all your things, we have to leave now. So they obviously had to leave the heavy stuff like their beds and stuff, but they grabbed all their stuff. The roomies went into their own places that they can stay for a while. Christy went over to her boyfriend's and they never went back to that apartment after that. Mind you, the lockdown hit right after that, right? So apparently what ended up happening was Dakota and Trent ended up staying in that apartment, completely trashing it. They turned it into a trap house and they just stayed there. The neighbors were apparently complaining for years, and when they finally got them out, the apartment complex had to completely renovate the entire apartment. Even though Christy and them broke the lease, they were still responsible for the rent. But because the dad was a co-signer, they were like, yo, that's on him. And so they ended up finding out through a family friend of Dakota's that Dakota did end up going to rehab at some point, and the dad did end up paying whatever remaining balance was on the rent. And she moved on. She said there's more like nuances that she wants to share, and she's going to do other parts. You guys make sure to go follow Christy and follow the rest of the parts to see if she adds any more context. Either way though, this is a crazy story. She said the lesson to be learned here is that when you feel like you're unsafe in a situation, just leave at the first red flag. Don't wait for a bunch of, you know, signs. I'm just glad that she's safe and that nothing happened. You guys tagged me in this a bunch. I wanted to make sure I got it out to you guys. I appreciate you guys as always. Bye.